Deep in the heart of an ancient forest, where the roots of oak trees stretch like the fingers of sleeping giants, there exists a world invisible to human eyes. A world of strategy, survival, and war. Two civilizations, one built in the golden chambers of a hollow tree, the other carved into the dark earth below, have lived side by side for generations. But peace, as always, is fragile. The bee colony was unlike anything the forest had ever seen. Their hive was a masterpiece of engineering, thousands of perfect hexagonal cells, each one filled with liquid gold. Honey so pure, so rich, so powerful that a single drop could sustain a warrior for an entire day. The bees worked from the first light of dawn until the last warmth of sunset, flying miles in every direction, collecting nectar, converting it, storing it. They were proud, they were disciplined, and they believed their home was untouchable. The ant colony lived beneath them, deep underground. A vast network of tunnels, chambers, and passages that stretched further than any creature above ground could imagine. The ants were not lazy. They worked just as hard as the bees. But this season had been cruel. A long drought had dried out the flowers, the seeds were few, the soil gave nothing. Their food stores were dangerously low, and the queen had begun to worry. She called her generals together in the deepest chamber of the colony, beneath the amber light of glowing fungi. "We are running out of time," she said quietly. "Winter approaches, and we are not ready." One general stepped forward. He was older than the rest, scarred from a dozen battles with beetles and centipedes. His name was Kale. "There is enough food," he said slowly, "to feed this entire colony for 3 winters. It hangs above our heads, in hexagonal cells, guarded by wings." Silence fell across the chamber. "The bees," whispered another general. "The bees," confirmed Kale. The plan was not made in anger. It was made in desperation. And desperation, as any soldier knows, produces the most dangerous strategies. Kale selected his finest scouts, 3 ants small enough to pass unnoticed, fast enough to disappear before a wing could strike. He briefed them in the darkness of the tunnel, drawing the route in the dirt with the tip of his antenna. "You go up through the eastern root channel. You emerge near the base of the oak. You observe. You count the guards. You map the entry points. And you come back." The scouts moved like shadows through the underground passage. They emerged at the base of the great oak just before sunrise, when the bees were still warming their wings inside the hive. One scout climbed carefully, pressing her body flat against the bark, moving only when the wind moved. She found a crack in the wood just below the main entrance, a gap no bee had thought to guard, because no bee had ever imagined something so small could pass through it. She entered. The smell hit her first. Rich, overwhelming, intoxicating. Honey everywhere. The chambers glowed amber in the pale light filtering through the wood. She moved through the corridors carefully, memorizing each turn. She reached the main storage vault and stopped. Rows upon rows of sealed cells, each one heavy with honey. She pressed her mouth to one cell and tasted it. Her whole body trembled. She packed what she could carry and retreated the way she came. When she returned to the colony and presented the honey to the queen, every ant in the chamber leaned forward. The queen tasted it and closed her eyes. "Bring me more," she said. And so the operation began. For 3 nights, teams of ants moved through the root channel, up the bark, through the crack, into the hive. They worked in silence and darkness, carrying grain-sized drops of honey back through the tunnels. The bees slept, unaware. The operation was perfect, clean, invisible. Until it wasn't. On the 4th night, a young bee named Sora couldn't sleep. She wandered the lower chambers of the hive, running her legs along the walls the way bees do when something feels wrong. She reached the storage vault and noticed it immediately. Dozens of cells, empty. Not open from the outside, not broken, drained from within, through a hole barely visible in the corner of the wall. She pressed her eye to the gap and saw, disappearing into the darkness of the bark below, a line of tiny figures, each one carrying a drop of gold. Sora didn't panic. She flew straight to the queen's chamber and woke her with a single word: thieves.
The Bee Queen, whose name was Vela, and who had ruled the Hive for 6 seasons, did not raise her voice. She simply stood, spread her wings, and said, "Show me." By the time Vela reached the storage vault and assessed the damage, her expression had shifted from surprise to something colder. She looked at the hole in the wall. She looked at the empty cells. She looked at Sora. "How long?" "At least 4 nights, my queen." Vela turned to her commander, a large drone named Brix, whose wings hummed with barely contained energy. "Seal the gap. Double the guards on every lower entry point, and find where they come from." Brix led a squad of scouts along the outer bark of the oak, tracing the trail of scent the ants had left behind. It led them to the roots, and the roots led them underground, where they found the entrance to the ant tunnels, a hole in the earth, perfectly circular, perfectly hidden beneath a flat stone. Brix returned to the queen with a location and a proposal. "We strike at night, fast, hard. They won't expect it." But Vela shook her head. "No. We don't strike blind. We don't know how many they are. We don't know the tunnels. We would lose half our force in the dark." She paused. "We think, and then we act." The bees spent 1 full day preparing. They gathered their strongest warriors, not to attack, but to build. Using wax and bark fiber, they constructed something the ant colony had never encountered: a trap. A system of tunnels built from wax, placed over the ant entrance, designed to funnel any ant that emerged directly into a chamber where bees were waiting. But that wasn't all. Vela had studied the ants for years, the way all intelligent creatures study their neighbors. She knew they communicated through scent. She knew that if she could disrupt that scent, she could cause chaos. Her chemists, the bees who worked with propolis and enzymes, spent hours creating a compound that mimicked the ant colony's alarm pheromone, the scent of panic. At midnight, when the ant raiding party emerged from their tunnel entrance, they walked directly into the wax funnel. Before they could signal retreat, the alarm compound was released. A wave of false panic scent flooded back down the tunnel into the colony below. In the ant colony, chaos erupted instantly. Every soldier ant activated. Warriors ran in every direction. The queen was rushed to the deepest chamber. The tunnels flooded with confused, frantic movement. Kale screamed for order, but his voice was lost in the noise. Ants collided. Tunnels blocked. The raid party above, trapped in the wax funnel, were surrounded and captured without a single bee being harmed. By morning, the 6 captured ants stood before Queen Vela. She looked at them for a long time. They were thin, she noticed. Their bodies lacked the roundness of well-fed soldiers. Their eyes held something that was not cruelty, it was desperation. She recognized it, because she had seen it in her own colony during the drought 3 years ago, when half her hive had nearly starved. She dismissed her guards and spoke to the ants alone. "You came to steal from us," she said. The lead ant, the same scout who had first entered the hive, raised her head. "We came to survive." Another long silence. "How much do you need?" Vela asked. The ant looked confused. "My queen, we need enough to last the winter, enough for the young and the old. We are not thieves by nature. The drought left us with nothing." Vela walked to the entrance of the hive and looked out into the forest. The oak tree stretched above her, ancient and vast. The flowers below were beginning to recover. Next season would be better. She could already feel it in the air. She turned back. "Here is what we will offer. Not theft, not war, a trade. Your colony controls the eastern soil routes, the paths that lead to the meadow. Our foragers lose hours navigating those routes alone. You guide us. You protect our foragers on the ground from beetles and spiders. In return, we share 10% of every harvest." The ant scouts stared. "You would do this after what we did?" "I would rather have allies below my roots than enemies below me." Bayless simply said. Go back to your queen. Tell her what I have said. The ants were released. 3 days later, the ant queen sent Kale to the base of the oak tree with a single drop of earth, the traditional gesture of peace among underground colonies. Vela received it and returned a single drop of honey sealed in wax. And from that season forward, the two colonies worked together. The bees flew higher, the ants moved faster, the forest flourished around them. The oak tree grew stronger with every passing year, as if it too understood that the creatures living within it had finally learned what every ancient tree already knows, that roots and wings are not enemies, they are two halves of the same living world. But somewhere, deep in the tunnels, old Kale sat alone and sharpened his weapons, because peace, as any soldier knows, must always be protected. And the forest, as beautiful as it was, had other creatures in it. Creatures that had not yet learned the lesson of the oak tree. Not yet.